My baby monitor alerted me at 3 a.m. What I saw still haunts me. I'm a nurse, and right now, I work night shifts. It's exhausting, but I'm holding on to the hope that I can switch to day shifts soon since a few coworkers are retiring. Anyway, I was at work one night, going through my usual routine when my phone buzzed just after 3 a.m. It was an alert from my son's baby monitor, notifying me of sound and movement. No big deal, I thought. He's 3 now, and he usually sleeps through the night, but maybe he coughed loudly or shifted in bed. I opened the app to check, expecting to see him fast asleep. Instead, I saw something completely normal, but somehow deeply unsettling. My son was sitting up on his bed, and my wife was right there beside him. Again, I told myself this wasn't anything strange. Maybe he had a nightmare, and she went in to comfort him. But just as I was about to close the app, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. They weren't moving. They were just sitting there, perfectly still, both of them staring directly at the camera. Their expressions were blank, emotionless. The baby monitor's night vision turned their eyes into hollow, glowing white voids. A chill ran down my spine. For a few seconds, I just watched, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe they had both just coincidentally looked up at the camera at the same time. Maybe my wife was half asleep. Maybe I closed the app and called my wife. I never get to call home during my shift, so in some weird way, I was almost glad for the excuse. The phone rang a couple of times before she finally answered with a groggy, half asleep, "Hello?" That's when I really started to feel uneasy. Her voice sounded too tired, like she had been in a deep sleep. But just moments ago, I had seen her sitting wide awake on the baby monitor. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "You guys okay? Huh?" "Yeah," she mumbled. "Buddy came in like 15 minutes ago. Seemed scared, so I said he could sleep with Mama." The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. I gripped my phone tighter. "Wait, so you guys are in bed right now?" "Yeah, I fell back asleep right away." "Everything okay? You're waking me up." My pulse pounded in my ears. I had just seen them in his room. I had just watched them sitting on his bed staring at the camera. I swallowed hard. "Hang on a second." I put her on speaker and reopened the app, praying, begging that the feed would be empty. It wasn't. My wife and my son were still there in his room, sitting on the bed, still staring. A cold wave of fear crashed over me. "Hello?" my wife said through the phone. I could barely get the words out. "You're sure you're in bed?" "Yes, we're trying to sleep." She was getting irritated now. "Why?" I hesitated, staring at the screen. Then, after a few seconds, I heard rustling as she reached for her phone. I held my breath, and then I heard it. A sharp, gasping inhale. The kind of sound someone makes when all the air is sucked from their lungs in pure terror. I had only heard that sound from her a handful of times before. Once when a jump scare caught her off guard in a horror movie, and once when we lost sight of our son for a single second, only to find him standing inches from the road. Sheets rustled, then the line went dead. I broke into a cold sweat. I called back immediately. No answer. I called again, and again. No response. I swear, those 4 minutes of silence felt like 40 years. When she finally called me back, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Slow down," I said, trying to keep my own panic at bay. "Just tell me what's happening." Through choked sobs, she managed to get the words out. She had pulled up the camera on her phone. She had seen exactly what I was seeing. And the second she did, she jumped out of bed, grabbed our son, and ran. Didn't even stop to close the garage door. Didn't even look back. She was driving straight to her parents' house. My hands were shaking. "It's okay. You're safe. That's all that matters." But then she whispered something that made my blood turn to ice. "When I ran past Buddy's room," she said, voice barely above a breath, "I swear I saw something in there. A shadow. Like a person sitting on his bed." I felt a chill creep up my spine. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop watching the camera. I checked every few minutes, hoping, praying that whatever I was seeing was some kind of glitch, some technical malfunction. But they were still there, still sitting, still staring, still breathing. I watched for hours, studying every tiny movement. If this was some kind of freak recording glitch, there had to be a pattern. They're breathing, they're blinking. But there was no pattern. The blinking was random. The breathing was normal. The hours passing on the feed proved it wasn't just a looped video. The faint light from the sunrise started creeping through my son's window. The room brightened slightly, but the baby monitor's night vision stayed on, and still they didn't move. I didn't know what to do. Calling the police felt ridiculous. What was I supposed to say? Hey officers, there's someone in my house that looks exactly like my wife and son, but isn't them. What if they weren't human? What if they hurt someone? I decided to tell my coworker about it. He's a big believer in the paranormal and might have some ideas. His first reaction, dude, that's creepy as hell, wasn't exactly reassuring, but then he said, let's go check it out. I stared at him. Are you insane? Not in. Not inside, he clarified. Let's just drive over, see if we can spot anything from outside. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to leave it alone, but I did need to close the garage, so I agreed. We drove to my house, tension thick in the car. As soon as we arrived, we walked the perimeter. The curtains were drawn, giving us no glimpse inside. Everything looked normal, eerily so. I stepped toward the garage, pressing the button to close it. But as I stood there, staring at my front door, an overwhelming sensation crawled up my spine. I needed to go inside. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't logic. It was something deeper, like an itch in my brain I couldn't ignore. Against every ounce of common sense, I stepped forward. My coworker followed. The moment we crossed the threshold, silence swallowed us whole. The house felt empty, but not in a peaceful way. More like the unsettling stillness of a place waiting for something to happen. We moved through the kitchen, stopping at the base of the stairs. I pulled out my phone and checked the baby monitor. They were still there, still sitting, still staring. My coworker placed one foot on the first step. Stop! My voice came out sharper than I intended. And then a loud, deliberate creak sounded from upstairs, from my son's room. I grabbed my coworker's arm, heart hammering. We need to go. Now. We bolted outside, breathless. The moment we hit the pavement, I checked the monitor again. Only not my son remained. Not my wife was gone. A wave of dread crashed over me as I slammed the garage door shut. But before we left, I forced myself to check the monitor one last time. She was back, sitting beside not my son. Both of them staring, both blinking, both waiting. That was 4 days ago. They haven't moved, not even an inch. And now I have only one question. What do we do? Subscribe for part 2.